I personally am Nick Sirianni'd out. Let's talk about this actual football team, how they can improve, and the Giants this Sunday. We got Zach Berman joining and Vinny Curry joining the show as well next here on the PHLY Eagles Podcast. I personally couldn't care less about Nick Sirianni anymore. It's been an exhausting week. It's Wednesday. Welcome into the PHLY Eagles Podcast. I am Jamie Lynch, joined by Les Bowen, and we are presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. And whatever the moments, it's never ordinary at Bet365. I would say this was an unordinary week from the Eagles, Les. Let's bring Zach Berman in here because the locker room is opening up and we got to send our man off to carry that Big J journalism shield into the locker room and get the good stories. Zach, welcome in, buddy. I know Nick Sirianni spoke today. I just read your piece before the show that's up on allphly.com. My big question is, whose offense is this? And I think your answer that you've kind of surmised this week is it's Jalen Hurts' offense. Do you have any sort of better idea about what exactly that means here? And, Fran Duffy's written some great pieces about lack of use in the middle of the field, lack of motion, all that stuff. Why don't you kind of give us the last day and how you feel here? I know, I'm just beaten down by it. Don't tell Emily this, Zach. We're going to pause here momentarily. We just have a slight little audio hiccup. We're going to try and correct that shortly. But basically, Les, what Zach was saying there was this is Jalen Hurts' as Zach and Fran and you have pointed out, there's a lot left on the field. And the middle of the field seems to be the easiest area for a quarterback to be able to attack.
What I was going to say is Zach, and I
just pause for a second because we're in the...
Hey, welcome back into the PHLY Eagles Podcast. Take two. We are. Look, when technical mishaps happen, you would say that's not ordinary here at PHLY. Maybe to you sickos, you're used to it. But if it's not ordinary, I think of Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Sorry about the technical issues. We'll be checking back in here with Zach momentarily. But last, we were talking about the kind of conundrum Eagles fans find themselves in. Whose offense is this with the Eagles? It feels a lot like stuff we saw last year when the wheels fell off. We'll bring Zach back in because I know he's got to get to the locker room. Okay. Zach, we missed the audio there, so if you want to surmise for the people kind of again what you said there in terms of whose offense is this, Jalen Hurts is the coaching staff, just go on.
A lot of it is what Jalen wants to work with.
Absolutely. I don't doubt that a bit, Zach. But walk me through, like, for instance, motion. The opening game, they used the most motion they've used this season, and they scored, I believe, 34 points. Why would Jalen have trouble with motion? What about motion would be a problem for him?
Yeah, it's a good question, Les. And as you know, they kind of have a reason for everything, but it doesn't necessarily all add up. So one thing you heard is that in the weeks when AJ wasn't there, is that a lot of it was to try to simplify it for the other receivers, right? And then when AJ's here, this past game, one thing you hear is that they were running a lot of tempo, and when you're in tempo, you're not using a lot of motion. Right. So there's kind of a reason for everything, but ultimately, when they hired Kellen Moore, you're expecting to see a certain type of offense, and I think you see certain play designs, but you don't see the overall scheme.
We weren't imagining all that when they said they were going to do it.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Yeah, so it does surprise me, and I think it would behoove them to use more of what they've done or what they're supposed to do.
So Zach, part of me Tuesday morning woke up like wishing to give Nick Sirianni some grace, and maybe we did react a little too much. It was embarrassing. I didn't like it and all that, but I almost want to put like the first 5 weeks behind me now. There's a lot of obvious offensive issues with this team, and Fran's piece in breaking down Hurts's strengths and negatives was fantastic this week. Forget the past. How do we correct this going forward? Is there a willingness from Hurts to maybe go outside of his comfort zone, to stay in the pocket a little bit more? Fran pointed out his numbers on the run are amongst the worst in the NFL. So like they seem to be doing a lot of things. I don't care who likes what at this point. We need to correct what the problem is. Did you get any sense of that from either Kellen or Nick going forward?
I think a lot of it, frankly, is going to be personnel dictated, right, and matchup dictated. I think a big thing to watch right here, and I think one of the news coming out of today is Dallas Goedert, and it looks like he's going to miss Sunday. We'll see if it's multiple weeks. But if it's Grant Calcaterra in there, what are you doing in terms of getting some of those layup passes, right? In the 3 games that Dallas Goedert missed last season, the tight ends combined to have 2 catches, right? That's not good. When you think about those quick gimme passes to tight ends, those should be there. So I think really getting some more high percentage passes, and Jalen's completion percentage was pretty good for those first few weeks, but now you get AJ Brown, you get Devontae Smith back. I really think it's a matter of maximizing their skill set. Those quick slants to AJ that we saw in training camp, you need to make that a staple in this offense.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah, and Zach, we know you got to get to the locker room. I don't want to take too much of your time here. But Saquon returning to New York is obviously the other huge story this weekend. Do you think there's going to be a focus on feeding him the rock a little bit? More so than normal, I would say?
Yes. And that's going to be the big thing that I look into in the locker room. That was a big part of the press conference today. This always happens where like they downplay it the week of, and then you heard AJ Brown after the Titans game in 2022 him saying, no, this really was personal. I wanted to stick it to them, that kind of thing. James Bradberry against the Giants in 2022. Darius Slay gave an impassioned speech the night before, kind of about James Bradberry's value. James Bradberry had a big game. I think this is going to be I think the focus will be on Saquon throughout the week leading up to it, and certainly on game day. And I got to imagine they're going to do things to try to feature him. Also, it's worth pointing out the Giants have the most sacks in the NFL. The Eagles will play without Jordan Mailata. That's a big story here. So I think really leaning into the running game is one thing they could do as well.
That's great. We'll let you go, Zach. We appreciate your time. Get in that locker room and get the good scoops for allphly.com. We'll talk soon, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
Good to see you.
There he is. And it wouldn't be a true sicko show if we didn't have some technical difficulties. It's not Julia's fault. We have to do some self-scouting here at PHLY and review the tape. Les, what I was talking about with Zach there, Monday I was kind of like embarrassed as an Eagles fan. Like, that's just not a good look. You have Pat McAfee and the national outlets mocking you and clowning you. And I know Jeffrey Lurie doesn't like that. Right. And then on Tuesday I was kind of like, all right, I'm sick of this story. Maybe us as fans and consumers of this team, we're a little hard on Nick, and it's too much. Maybe I give him some grace. What was now that it's Wednesday, you've had 2 or 3 nights sleep on it, what's your ultimate 30,000-foot view on what transpired this week?
Well, I think it's been talked about to death, as you said. What I thought was interesting was Nick sort of manipulated this when he spoke Monday. It became all about his interaction with that fan or fans. Mm-hmm. And that was never my biggest problem with the whole thing. I didn't like that. I didn't think he needs to do that.
Sure.
If it was as innocent as that one fan claimed on Reddit, I don't see why Nick wouldn't have said that right away and diffused the whole thing. But that press conference, was the thing. First of all, he's got his kids up there like it's a postseason win or something, and they're celebrating. And his whole demeanor about beating the Browns by 4 points was like, oh, Deshaun Watson, oh boy, yeah. What the hell was that?
Yeah.
I still don't. I'm going to let it go, but I don't get it. And I've wondered a lot about what he was trying to say there. Is he trying to lower expectations for this team? Does he think they're really just not that good? Or to give him, the benefit of kind of what you were saying, are we looking at this? Was the game really different from what the score indicated? You had that ridiculous screw up at the end of the first half that probably was at least a 10-point turnaround, if not a 14-point turnaround. They could have very easily won that game by double digits, and it would have been more or less. I mean, you had some fans thinking they were going to win by 40 points, which is really not realistic.
Don't bet underdogs in the NFL this year of 6.5 points or higher.
The Browns are not the Carolina Panthers.
No.
I mean, they do have a talented defense, and I thought that
and
9
Jim
or
Schwartz.
10-point spread was
I think they're overvaluing
certainly
the Eagles.
adequate.
Yeah,
but maybe we got a little over our skis in terms of, it wasn't but we just keep waiting for that win that's going to really, make people think this is a good team.
Sure. And we have yet to get that.
No, we haven't seen anything like that since the middle of last season.
Yeah.
And they carry that weight around with them, I think.
Sure.
Whether it's fair or not, some of these guys like Saquon weren't even here last year, but
sure.
But everybody carries that weight of, okay, when are you going to look like a contender again?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a stink in there. And, if you judge it over the last 15 or 16 games, this isn't a good football team. So I think a lot of guys do want that. And I think the reason part of last week stunk so much was that it was coming out of the bye.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a reset button. And your first 15 plays, Fran and I talked about this on the pregame show. Like, this is a chance to come out of the bye. Everybody's healthy. Everybody's back. To put your best offensive foot forward, and they didn't, and that's the reason it stings.
And Jamie, the one thing, that whole week going into that game, Nick talked, and the coaches and players all talked about how they had all this great time to get under the hood and make all these adjustments and, take a long view of things. And I expected a smoother, more productive operation, especially with the weapons back and so forth. And we just didn't see it. And it was disappointing. And I'm real interested about what we're going to see this week, frankly.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating game this weekend. Obviously, you have the Saquon storylines and lots of stuff there. And to comment to Cousin Grace in the chat, it's never good when the clown of the national media scene is clowning you. That's the only reason I brought up Pat McAfee. I don't think Jeffrey Lurie likes that too much when his head coach is one of the talking points of the NFL on Monday morning after a win. But there was some good things in that game, and we'll get into that next. But let me take a minute to tell you about something cool happening in the Philadelphia area on Saturday. It's the National Thoroughbred League. This Saturday, October 19th, the National Thoroughbred League owns the day over at Parks Racing with a lineup of 5 NTL races and Philadelphia's biggest day of racing outside of the Pennsylvania Derby. The NTL Philadelphia Cup is hosted, I think we've all heard of this guy, Dr. J. Well, the Philadelphia Stallions co-owner Julius Irving.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, not bad. I can never be zinc, but meet and greets with a dozen or more Philadelphia sports legends, including Dr. J himself, my man Brian Westbrook, who's one of the nicest people in the world, Seth Joyner, Freddie Mitchell, plus many more, and of course some New York Giants, Otis Anderson, Howard Cross, and the great Beasley Reese, all to chop it up there before Sunday's Eagles-Giants game. There's private beer gardens, an NTL music stage, best in Philly food offerings, art demonstrations, fashion shows, and of course, the most exciting day in racing anywhere this year. The NTL has 10 teams from the Stallions to the New York Knights and the California Shamrocks facing off in 5 races with 3 hours of higher stakes, building excitement, and then the big finale. There's nothing like it in horse racing or in sports today. And you can be there this Saturday. Doors open and the races start at 2:30, but the doors open at noon. And we're partnering with NTL to give diehards exclusive access to this event. So just show your email subscription at the gates for free admission. For more information, go to ntl.racing to find out more. And of course, if you've gotten some marketing emails in the past, I've always noticed when they're nice and neat and informative, there's a constant theme, and it's always from Constant Contact. And, you want to talk about your business's goals, how you're trafficking, content coming to your site and email, research and marketing. Are you close? Are you actually reaching people? Can't believe we're already in and out of Q4 already. Well, it means it's crunch time for your business goals you set back in January. If you can think it, then you can. Constant Contact is awesome. They'll keep a detailed registry of people you can contact with, get your business message and specials out there. No matter how experienced you are with digital marketing, Constant Contact has the tools to make your marketing run smoother. Sell more, raise more, and build more genuine relationships with your audience with Constant Contact's suite of digital marketing tools, all made to fast track your success. Time to put the go in your 2024 business goals with email, social, SMS, and customized marketing campaigns built for you in just a few clicks. Ready, set, go to constantcontact.com/allcity and start your free trial today. Go to constantcontact.com/allcity for your free trial. Welcome back into the Bet365 PHLY Eagles podcast. You can find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Les, part of the reason I felt like, all right, I can't hear about Nick Sirianni anymore. I'm over. What happened was it's hard to get wins in the National Football League. And at the end of the day, although it didn't feel right, it didn't look pretty, a win is a win. And I thought there was some good things that came out of that game. Primarily, I know Deshaun Watson was the quarterback on the other side. Cooper DeJean had me feeling really good. And it's almost a shame that his kind of starting debut got lost in all the shenanigans of off the field stuff. I thought, for you covered rookies your entire life. For me, like the thing I look for right away is, do they look and feel like they belong? Right. I'm not looking for the world. I expect mistakes. Do they physically look like they belong on an NFL football field? And Cooper DeJean passed that in spades. I thought, a great debut. I think him and Quinyon Mitchell is a really exciting thing for this team. But all the exciting things about this team get lost in kind of all the nonsense.
Yeah, somewhat. He did play very well. And a lot of people have noticed I kind of like Avonte Maddox I like what he's done with his career. He was a 4th-round pick, undersized. He's worked hard, come back from injuries,
nickel,
fearless,
outside, safety.
but he's not the player he used to be.
Sure.
And when you put Cooper DeJean in that spot, you get a guy who's a lot bigger. He's almost a quasi-linebacker there. In fact, the way the Eagles draft linebackers, he probably is as big as some of them. But it was a very different equation with him. And I want to see how this week goes because you're right about rookies. Defensive backs in particular.
That's a tough job.
I don't get real excited about rookie. In fact, Quinyon Mitchell, I was thinking all through camp and preseason that Isaiah Rodgers would start in that spot just because it's so hard. But Quinyon Mitchell has proved me to be an idiot. So he's, as if anyone needed proof. But so Cooper DeJean, I thought he was tremendous. I also thought, and I don't want to hijack your train of thought here at all. I thought Hurts, after the first quarter, played
clean.
very, very, very well. He didn't make spectacular plays, but he was incredibly efficient. That version of Jalen Hurts, you can win games with.
Sure.
Is what I'm thinking. And I'm not, there are a lot of people out there. You'd be surprised at some of the stuff I get on social media. The people that are just wanting to run him out of town.
Yeah, I don't get that.
It's not, we're not to that point. Let's calm down a bit on Jalen Hurts.
I always heard, if a coach is screaming at you growing up, that means they believe in you and they believe you have more. So hopefully it's just that as people want more. But to your point, if he's going to be playing the way he is right now, which is probably a middle of the pack ish.
Well, I think he can be a little better.
He can be, I believe.
Pack. Yeah,
but if you're going to be at this level, the
10,
thing you have to do is protect the football.
Yeah.
And that was the first time on Sunday you saw him have a clean game. And that's kind of been the difference in winning and losing some of these early season games.
Oh, it absolutely has.
It has been the turnover thing. So hopefully that's, a baby step in the right direction there.
But
it
the
would be the
middle
best
of the
thing for
field
him.
thing, they have to get. Oh, they have to figure out that. I know he's not a tall quarterback, and I know Drew Brees was a master of figuring out the angles and moving his feet and getting a lane
tippy
to throw.
toe sometimes,
and especially if you're Jalen Hurts and you've had this turnover problem, you're very, very aware of the fact that shorter quarterback throwing over the middle, you're really asking for a tipped ball, which has happened to him, more than once. But they have to figure that out. You can't ignore the middle of the field. And that first sequence where they're just throwing it down the sidelines again.
Four straight passes.
Fran did a good job of pointing out how even if that's what you do, even if you can win those 50-50 balls, when you're throwing long down the sidelines, it's a low percentage play.
Sure.
It's never something that you're going to live off of. And they have to get away from trying to live off that.
Yeah, they do. And I think part of the other reason that Fran detailed in the story is he seems to be bailing, maybe because of the throwing lanes, and he's not comfortable. He seems to be bailing a little bit quicker this year than he has in years past. And his numbers of effectiveness throwing on the run are decreasing to a low point for him. So it's almost like there needs to be that realization you're not the same on the outside anymore as you used to be. Yeah. Like maybe take your chances inside. I think it's kind of between the ears a little bit with him right now.
I think so too. And I don't think there's any reason why he shouldn't be good on the run because he has been in the past. I used to wonder with some of these games, I always wanted to see what the receivers were really doing because I'm not sure the receivers always do a great job of working their way back to him and getting themselves open in scramble drill situations. Because if they do, and he's still not throwing to, I don't know what to do with that. But I do think there's times when they just sort of stand back there. Oh, okay, maybe Jalen's going to run or something. I don't know. It doesn't seem like some teams you really see that effort. You see the guy with his hands up. I don't see that a lot from the Eagles. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. No, I think it's a fair point. I don't really see the communication when he's on the run like you do with some of the greats in this league. It feels like Lamar and Patrick are always pointing somebody out, go this way, go that way. So the reality is they need to get better. And I think all of you writers this week have done a great job addressing, the elephant in the room. Unless for those that didn't read your story, These were
Hard
the questions.
to believe anyone fall into that camp.
How could you not read the man's story? It's right there on allphly.com. You can become a diehard and get Les's story. But the Kellen Moore offense, your story was kind of like, whose offense is this? Who's designing this?
Well, it's just he was asked all the questions yesterday. Why not this? Why not that? And he gave answers, but they were not answers that really he was trying to tailor everything to the Browns game. And the questions weren't really specifically about the Browns game. They were about overall, why is your pattern over 5 games this? And he kept talking about, against this team, we felt we could do this. And, it didn't answer the question.
Yeah, sure. The questions you wanted answered, number one, you wrote in the story, what do the Eagles want their offensive identity to be?
Yeah.
I think it's the $1 million question because you invested all this money in Saquon Barkley. He's going back to New York this week, and the theater there is going to be great. By the way, Saquon doesn't think he's going to be booed because he thinks Giants fans are over it. What's your guess on that one?
Well, that's very interesting because I wrote a piece, although it was not for PHLY, it was for South Jersey Magazine. It was a preview piece. I was really struck from the minute Saquon got here. He didn't seem to. He was very surprised by the reaction of Giants fans. Why? You've been their best player. You're the franchise player for the last 6 years. When has this ever happened?
Yeah, never.
That a franchise player has gone to a hated rival 100 miles, less than 100 miles down the road, and in the same division.
Yeah, and it gone swimming.
I mean, I actually looked for a parallel.
A closer.
And I couldn't find a real good one. Brett Favre coming back to Green Bay as a Viking, but he'd already been a Jet at that point. He was like 40 years old. I've never seen anything quite like this, And Saquon just didn't seem to get it. He didn't seem, and he kept talking about, when he was talking about the Eagles, he'd say, well, my view from afar was, and I was like, afar?
You live in our backyard.
Yeah, I mean, so it doesn't surprise me that he doesn't think he's going to get booed. He's going to get booed.
Oh, he's going to get booed.
Boy, is he going to get booed.
Yeah, he seems like a guy that just kind of checks out and does the family life and isn't online. And sometimes I wonder what that existence
really
is like.
Tuned into that whole deal.
God bless him.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wish I was a little more checked out. But what do you think the Eagles? What do you think they want their offensive identity to be? I think this is the $1 million question because you have so much supreme talent at pretty much all the positions. Tight end, wide receiver, running back, offensive line, quarterback.
Yes.
There's basically no excuses for this offense. If they had their druthers, and you can only have your druthers, I know. What do you think they want it to be?
See, that's the thing. If there was a healthy 49ers offense, which it isn't, that would be the only group that I would say probably is superior to the Eagles group. There's no other team in the league that has what the Eagles have. So why aren't the Eagles at least second or third in the league in offense? They should be. Obviously, they've had injuries, and that's part of it. But I think they want to be able to do whatever they have to do to win a game. I don't think they want to be a team that relies too much on A.J. Brown or relies too much on Barkley. But I do think they need to have, like, our typical game is X. We get a lead, and then Barkley runs for 100 yards in the second half. I think that's probably what they're aiming toward, but they don't have the lead because they can't score in the first quarter.
Yeah, it's really a trend that's quite concerning at this point. And we'll resume the questions from Les's story right after this. And I tell you about another friend. You've been hearing the jingle on TV for what feels like decades, and that's because you have. It's Empire Today, and they've stood the test of time. That's why you've heard so many great things about Empire Today. And right now, if you go to empiretoday.com/PHLY, you can get $350 off new floors. And if you're anything like me, I absolutely hate going to big box stores. One, you can't find anybody to help you. Two, when you do find that person, they're either disinterested or they don't know what they're talking about. Well, when you go to Empire, they strive on that shop-at-home convenience, and they'll show up right at your front door, listen to you, hear you out, And with their virtual floor designer, they can show you right then and there in your house with your furniture, your color, all that, what the floors will look like in your new home. And they're not going to beat you over the head with thousands of examples. They're going to hear you out and give you exactly the stuff they would put in their own homes. And they service their own warranties. So just call Empire if an issue does arise. You don't have to track down some manufacturer. So schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive $350 off when they use the promo code PHLY. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/PHLY for details. And once you get those new floors, you can march yourself right over to that beer fridge of yours and go and grab a cold, delicious Miller Lite. It's the original light beer since 1975. And to this day, it's still the best one. Why? Because it's simple. It's a light beer that tastes like light beer should taste. It's less filling, great quality, and they got rid of everything that doesn't matter, and they just held on to what matters most. So when you're with friends and family, whether it be at a tailgate, a family gathering, a picnic, down the shore, up in the mountains, wherever, Miller Lite always hits the spot because they keep it simple. The original light beer since 1975, and you don't have to choose what's best. Miller Lite has great taste and is less filling. Tastes like Miller time. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/PHLYBirds. Or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories per 12 ounces. Fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer. All right, welcome back into the PHLY Eagles Podcast, presented by Bet365. We're going to be joined by Super Bowl champion Vinny Curry in about 10 minutes. But Les, the other questions you kind of wanted answers to and didn't really get from Kellen Moore. Number 2. How much Moore feels he can build the attack around the concepts he likes, unconstrained by the preferences of Nick Sirianni or the limitations of Jalen Hurts? Another great question. I would love a true Sam Anson. You're not going to get it. I
kind of knew you're not going to get an honest answer to that.
But I'd love to know.
He doesn't seem especially bothered by anything so far. He's worked in these situations before. He's not been a head coach. Everywhere you go, you're working around. I don't know that he's had. Well, McCarthy was kind of it is an offensive head coach.
Yeah.
But I think this comes up a lot. Certainly, the quarterback comes up a lot. Everywhere you go, is he this kind of guy? Is he that kind of guy? And I think Jalen. My hope is that Jalen is just settling into this offense.
Sure.
And that as Jalen was bothered, you got the 95%. Quote from him back in the spring. Mm-hmm. Jalen wants to settle into something, and I do think that's an issue with him.
Yeah, you hope, if you're trying to put your positive thinking hat on going forward, Zach wrote about that in his story as well, the kind of learning curve here, if it is drastically, different within. The next question in your piece, why has the use of motion declined dramatically from where it was the first 2 games?
And again, he just talked about the Browns game, and but you can document it. I think E.J. Smith did that in the Inquirer the other day. The first 2 games, they were over 50%. They've been down near 40% ever since.
Yeah.
Every team they play, they don't want to do motion. I mean, he had some good, they wanted to run tempo and blah, blah, blah. But
sure.
I just want to see it again. I think it worked dramatically well those first couple games.
Yeah, the Packers game where everybody was at full strength,
yes,
it seemed encouraging.
Yes.
And frankly, now you look back at the Packers game and it looks better than it does week 1 now because the Packers are good and you put up 34 points versus them.
Well, the issue that 2 bad Hurts turnovers really clouded that picture. And the defense, frankly, wasn't very good.
No.
And we were shocked by both of those things, I think. After, again, we had a whole, just like with the bye week, we had a whole off season of people saying that they learned this and they learned that, and then we saw the same crap that we were seeing last year. And but it's a good win, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it is. Number 4, we kind of addressed already with the middle of the field stuff.
Yeah.
Number 5, and by the way, Zach also pointed out in his piece, the 2 play action plays that they ran on Sunday was the fewest in Kellen Moore's offensive coordinator career. So you do wonder, and I think that's why Zach's more or less saying this is Jalen's offense. They're catering things. He's not under center a lot, so it's harder to run play action when you're not under center.
You can't really.
You can't.
You can sort of
fake pitch here and there, and maybe a counter here and there, but like that's about it.
Yeah.
So, I would love to know that. Number 5, why their run option game, once so formidable, is now routinely shut out by just about every opponent, regardless of defensive skill set. It's a great question. I don't know what happened to the Eagles screen game.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to their RPO, PRO, whatever you want to call it, game. It's all just kind of disappeared.
Right. Yeah, and this is one of those times when, my whole career, I was never a huge X and O guy. I mean, I'm not a former player or a coach or anything like that. I don't break down film. But this is one of those times when I'd like to know more about how this all works and why. When they were doing it well, it was like Jalen had one key and he could read that key and he would either run it or he'd hand it off or he'd throw it. Now it seems like in one of those games, it was like he kept it and there was a guy just waiting right there at the edge. Like, oh, good. Here you go. The plays look like they're dead from the moment the ball is snapped.
Yeah, our commenter Ed Wright said the RPO is just too slow developing. I think you're right. Like when you were talking about it being successful, there was a clear point of contact between, the running back and the quarterback where the defense was kind of caught off guard and not sure. And now when they run it, it seems like the defense is right on them. So I don't know if they have a tell or what, but that to me seems like a coaching issue. That needs to be corrected.
Good point.
And then the last question you asked of Kellen Moore there in your story was, why are they the only NFL team that hasn't scored a first quarter point this season? What is going on?
It is remarkable. It is just remarkable. And as I said, it affects, we were talking about the identity and the identity that I think they would like to have. You can't get ahead and really have your defense function at a high level and run the ball in the second half and all that stuff if you can't score in the first quarter. And it sure looks like a scouting from the standpoint of the coaches, not scouting in terms of scouting players. They just don't seem what they plan, what they envision that they're going to do against the opponent every week doesn't work.
Yeah.
How is that possible?
It doesn't seem like, outside of the 2 mesh plays that have gone for big scores, it doesn't seem like they're ever catching anyone off guard. And I think that's where fans and fanalists and analysts and journalists are kind of thinking, like, how can this be the case? How can you look like you're almost... Now, Sunday, I could give a nod to Jim Schwartz, and he knew what to expect, and he knew how to attack it. Yeah. So, like, that one I can... But the rest of the league, you don't seem to be stumping anybody offensively anymore. And that, I think, is why so many people have negative thoughts about the coaching staff right now.
Yeah, and they adjust. I mean, they don't spend the whole game unable to score.
Sure.
Usually, but
to your point, the second quarter, they started to heat up a little bit.
But what's the difference? What are you trying to do in those first series that is so, how are you...
Are you stubborn? Like, what is it?
Yeah. Are you forming these plans without really... They seem to be constantly surprised by what the defense is doing. Yeah. And I just don't see how that should be possible. I really don't. It's not like defenses are just reinventing themselves every week.
Oh, yeah, you'd think they'd be able to get ahead of this. All right, Super Bowl champion Vinny Curry is going to join us momentarily. But first, we have a super chat I want to get to from Chase Daniel Plainview. Are you surprised by the national heat Nick has got? He didn't abandon the team to dance on Cincinnati women or praise terrorists like some other head coaches. Dance up. Oh, Cincinnati women. What was that? Urban Meyer? Know. What's that reference to? I got the second one, Sean McDermott. I am a little surprised. So doing the game on Sunday when we reacted live to it, I was like, this is going to be something.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised how big of a story it became on Monday morning.
It's a beast that it was fodder, Sure. I mean, I don't think nationally it was that big a deal, but people need stuff to talk about on these shows. And there was a very vivid...
Sure.
It was on TV. Everybody saw it. There was a lot of local controversy. So let's get an opinion on this.
Sure. Yeah, the much bigger story is probably the Cowboys absolutely soiling themselves and falling apart.
Yeah, absolutely. And that has been a big, Jerry Jones, his radio thing yesterday.
That was bizarre.
Yeah, well, Jerry's a 82-year-old man.
He wants to see a win soon for all this money he's dishing out. All right, Vinny Curry is going to be joining us on the other side. But let me tell you about an event on Monday that I'm going to be playing in, and I'm so excited because the people out at TrueMark Financial are awesome. They're headquartered right here in Fort Washington. They have locations all over the Delaware Valley. And October 21st, they're having their golf outing at Talamore Country Club in Ambler, Pennsylvania. Registration starts at 9:30 a.m., and TrueMark Financial Care Foundation is hosting the charity golf outing to raise money for financial education and community development in the Philly and surrounding areas. For those of you that made our PHLY golf outing, you might remember our friends at TrueMark and their awesome foundation charity work they do. It's going to be a scramble format, includes lunch out on the course and a cocktail hour. Probably my favorite parts of golf outings. They're going to have hole-in-one challenges for 10,000 smackaroos, a putting contest, a longest drive, closest to the pin. And if you want to get your company involved with sponsorship and have your logo on display at the event, they're selling a variety of sponsorships, anywhere in the range of $350 to $2,750. Just visit truemark.com/events to sign up. And another product I've been using this summer, the lovely people over at ZBiotics were nice enough to send us some examples here. And my wife and I recently had an anniversary, and I knew we were going to be having 2-3 wines, as they say. And we decided to be responsible adults and make ZBiotics the first drink of our evening before we went out so we could, celebrate responsibly. And I just don't bounce back the way I used to. I'm a man. I'm 40. And, those morning with kids, they're not like they used to be. So I want to be at my best for them in the morning. So what happens is ZBiotics is a pre-alcohol probiotic drink, and it's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by people much smarter than me, PhD scientists, to make those rough mornings a little smoother after drinking. So when you drink, your alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in your gut. And it's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next morning. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. So just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. I kept hearing about pre-alcohol and wondered what it was actually like. They sent us some samples here at the station, and me and my wife can vouch for it. We've tried it, and we believe the hype. And with their GMO technology, they will release different products to help address toxic byproducts of modern living in the gut. So go to zbiotics.com/PHLY Eagles to learn more and get 15% off your order when you use code PHLY Eagles at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Okay, Vinny. Sorry, as I text Vinny back. Vinny Curry will be joining us momentarily here to talk about, look, there's one of the other positives less from the game was that the Eagles acquired 5 sacks on Sunday. Yeah. They had 4 all total. And I know the Browns were down offensively on the line, but guess what? The Giants just lost Andrew Thomas.
Yeah, so you're going to be situation.
Yeah, kind of a similar situation. And we're going to talk about it with Vinny. How do you keep that up? How do you keep that sack momentum going here?
Well, it helped a lot that Deshaun Watson held onto the ball quite a bit. Some of those sacks were, frankly, the one where, and DeJean did play beautifully, but he ran past the quarterback, turned around, came back, and still sacked him.
But DeJean does feel like Vic's new blitzing toy. Yeah. I think he sent him 3 times. And Avonte Maddox had blitzed 3 times in the previous 4 weeks. So something to keep an eye on there is how they use.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch. So Vinny will be joining us shortly, and we'll get to that. But Andrew Thomas is out for the Giants on Sunday. Yeah. Malik Neighbors will be returning. Daniel Jones hasn't thrown a home touchdown in over 21 months. This is a good part of the schedule to take advantage of.
But you almost wince at something like that because probability tells you that things like that just don't go on forever.
Sure.
But yeah, that's a good thing for the Eagles. Also, they got some other guys banged up. I think Burns and Lawrence didn't practice today.
Yeah, Brian Burns, their big offseason addition from the Panthers. He's a
tremendous.
beast. He's a beast. Yeah.
And that would be where the Eagles would have perceivably have a problem with Fred Johnson and Brian Burns. And Dexter Lawrence obviously is one of the best defensive tackles in football. If either of those guys can't go, it becomes much easier for the Eagles to win this, I think. But I'm assuming right now they'll both play. But, it's both teams come into this with some real injury questions, I think.
Yeah, and Matt in our chat says Dexter Lawrence has 7 sacks out of the defensive nose tackle position.
Right. Which is what we expect of Jalen Carter, but I keep being told every time I criticize Jalen Carter on social media that quarterbacks just get the ball out so fast. How do you expect him to, I don't know.
Okay, sorry, just trying to troubleshoot with Vinny there. Jalen Carter is an interesting one because there's times when he looks like he's bound for Canton.
Well, he has the talent to be that guy every play, and I want to see it. I don't see it every play, frankly.
Yeah, and then I think consistency, and Vinny has talked about this before with him. It's the consistency is the hardest part for young players. And, smart people say it's not fair to judge a guy until 3 years.
Yeah, I know. I'm not.
But I'm with you.
Or anything, but
the consistency doesn't seem to be there. And is he getting double teamed? Is he getting removed from? Is he getting game planned out? Does somebody else on the line need to step up more? And when you have a situation where Brandon Graham at age, what is he, 39? 36.
Yeah.
Might still be your best defensive lineman. You probably don't have a great defensive line.
That is probably the biggest trouble area I see for the Eagles going forward, frankly. The edge rush just isn't where it needs to be. The trade deadline is not here yet.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because we have a Discord channel here at PHLY, and I'm sure some of you sickos, I threw it at Bo yesterday. The Raiders.
Max Crosby?
They made a fire sale with Devontae Adams. Yeah. They've gone to Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew as their quarterback. Who the hell knows?
Right.
I mean, I know Max Crosby is the sun, the moose, the urn, all of it for the Raiders universe. But, I mean, you talk about a franchise changer. And then you look at the Cleveland Browns trading Amari Cooper.
Right.
Now, Myles Garrett, T.J. Watt, and Max Crosby are probably your 3 best edge rushers in the NFL. Right. 2 of them, it's hard not to get a little excited that maybe they could find themselves to the trading block. And do you push them? Is this team going to show you enough in the next month to deem them worthy of that type of move?
If I were running either of those teams, I certainly wouldn't trade either of those players because if you're going to build something, you need to start somewhere.
Yeah.
But, you see stuff like that happen all the time in sports. You really do, whether it makes sense or not. I don't know what you would give up. I'd give up a lot to get Max Crosby in here or Myles Garrett. I just can't imagine
he's a
Cleveland
freak.
Is going to do anything there. But Max Crosby with Raiders, who knows? The Raiders are the Raiders. They have a new plan every couple months. Howie isn't one to trade first-round picks and stuff like that.
Well, I was just going to say, Max Crosby probably is a minimum 2 first-round picks.
I'd do that.
Maybe into the 3s, 2 and a couple high picks with it.
Because your window isn't forever. You have some young guys here who just come into their own, but you have some older guys too. And Lane Johnson.
Sure.
I'm not even talking about Slay because I think they've done a decent job of drafting to replace him. But you want to get this done. I mean, Hurts isn't going to be young and healthy forever. His cap number goes way up next year. Maybe if you can make a splash move this year when the 49ers are down, Dallas is down, the NFC, frankly, the Vikings.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Vikings are going to last all year.
Yeah, they look great right now, and Brian Flores may be the boogeyman for a lot of opposing offenses, but you're right.
But this isn't a year where there's like a half dozen wonderful teams.
Sure.
And you just can't possibly win the Super Bowl.
And the Lions losing Hutchinson.
Yes, that's a huge deal.
They might be the favorite to go get Hassan Reddick now. I'm very curious to see how that plays out. Of course, the Jets gave Drew Rosenhaus
Yeah.
an ability to go out and shop him, which I always think is so weird that GMs start these calls with other front offices.
I understand that perfectly. What they know
explain
is
that a
that
little bit.
nobody wants to pay Hassan Reddick what Hassan Reddick thinks he's worth. And they want other teams to tell Hassan Reddick, hell no, I'm not going to pay you this. You know.
Go hear it for yourself.
Yeah.
We've been hearing this all offseason.
But I think the Eagles already did that before they traded him. So Hassan, I don't know what's up with Hassan. I thought he was a great guy. I was still kind of around the team some in 2022 when he had the marvelous year, his first year here. I thought he was a really interesting, decent, and last year suddenly it became that he was too much of a me guy. And
that was the rumors, yeah.
His play fell off, and they definitely wanted him out of here. I mean, they had a figure they were willing to pay, and when he wasn't willing to take that, they were ready to move on.
Yeah, but I think and
it's hurt the team.
Sure, absolutely. You can't lose edge rushers of that quality and expect to just replace it. And, the biggest thing, if this team does show Howie Roseman in the front office over the next 4 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it is, that they're good enough to make a trade, you have to think DeJean is the top of the list.
Right. It would have to be. Yeah, there's no other position that needs, unless we have some kind of gigantic injury this weekend or something. But right now, looking at the roster, that's my biggest concern is edge rush. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah, Bo did his preseason piece before the year, and he kind of asked some of us on the staff here, like, your predictions. My predictions were that they would trade for a D-end.
Yeah,
and
that's a good prediction.
I didn't think it was going to be this bad, though,
yeah.
Les. I thought they were going to trade for a D-end when you were getting more production. I didn't expect Huff to take this long. I've always been a Josh Sweat believer. It looks like he's getting close again and getting some good pressures. But
very weird situation there. They drafted him, and he wasn't all the way back from that horrible knee injury he'd suffered at high school. Over the next few years, he did get back from that. That's a guy who is built like
I think he was the number
player.
one. Wasn't he the number one high school DM recruit?
Yeah. He's a V, giant shoulders, skinny waist, big, strong legs. I mean, he's really a physical specimen, but you see him getting ridden off like 15 yards away from the quarterback somehow every week now. I don't get it. That's not the guy that he was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Well, somebody that does understand the intricacies of D-line play is our man, Vinny Curry. Vinny, what's up, buddy? How are you?
What's up, fellas? How y'all doing today?
Doing good, man. We're just trying to forget about the Sirianni nonsense of off the field stuff and look ahead to the New York Giants and how they can improve on the field. Vinny, the New York Giants got a big blow. Andrew Thomas, their rising left tackle in the league, is going to miss Sunday's game. Jordan Mailata also going to miss Sunday game. So both left tackles are out. When something like that is in the water for a defensive line room, do you just stick to what you've done, or do you try and send hell that way and really prey on a backup?
Oh man, you try to send hell that way. It's like when a shark smells blood in the water, he's going to attack mode.
So what does that mean? How do you attack the edge more? You just send in a whole bunch of stunts on the outside his way and trying to confuse him? Is it linebacker looks, blitz looks? Like, are you just trying to confuse him all game?
No, it goes like I heard a little bit of you guys' segment. It goes to that edge rusher. I'll start a versus they backup. Now that's going to be the highlight of the spotlight. Going to be on that matchup. For most of the game. So it goes to show you that you got to put our best on their backup. So hopefully, they spill blood in the water and understand it. And once, they try to slide that way or put a tight end to help him out, that'll free up some other one-on-ones down the line.
Vinny, you've been around. You're a DN. You were a DN. Josh Sweat, strange career, I think. He came out of a situation where nobody really knew if he was going to be healthy enough to contribute much. He did contribute much, and now he's not. What do you see there? He's not old yet. What's going on, do you think?
I just think from the standpoint, we all watch the game in the studio. I think a lot of the times is that, guys are sliding to him because other guys is probably maybe not winning their one-on-ones. And when he do wins one-on-one, he's like a split of a second, like
Almost there. Yeah.
almost almost there kind of, or just brush by. I do think the time is coming. I want to believe that he had a sack last week, so you know how this thing, the
Hmm.
sacks is weird, man. They come in bunches like that.
That's
So
true.
I do think he's getting ready to go on his run, and I do think that this is going to be a Josh Sweat game at MetLife Stadium.
Yeah, Vinny, I was going to ask you, do you recall seasons like this where maybe there was 4 or 5 weeks of feeling like
Oh
you were
yeah,
close, not getting there, and then there's that one game that just kind of turns everything?
yeah. That's no, oh man, Do y'all remember one year? They was dogging us like, yeah, I want to say the year we almost got. I think we broke the record or got close to it. We didn't have any. Next thing you know, went 8, 9, 10, 11. Like
Yeah, I think it was
oh,
72 sacks,
it
wasn't
went
it?
crazy. Boom,
Yeah.
boom, 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 boom. So it just happens that way because now when one person get hot, they start sliding to him. But now now I want to say pressure, but now it's up for your buddy. You know that you have a lot of faith in him to win his one-on-one, and then now you if you ain't going max protection, somebody got to be getting home.
When you were playing, you were really good at setting the edge, I thought, as a defensive end. The Eagles have not been good at that. Is that a scheme issue with what they're trying to do, how they're slanting, and what they're telling guys to do, do you think? When you watch
It's
these games, what do you see there?
it's funny because we talked about that in the studio. We was just saying
Yeah.
I told him,
The dirty work.
like yeah, I just take so much pride of bending somebody, setting the edge and applying force. But now I think guys out there, from what I see, they're thinking a little bit too much. And
Mm-hmm.
when they thinking, they allow the offensive tackle to get their hands on them, and you already lost the race. So, as we know that, quick step and shooting power from the hips helped me throughout my career on setting the edge. So we just gotta buckle down, not think too much, and understand, what we talked about. Here's another thing I talked about. Stop the run first, and then earn the right to rush the quarterback. And I really took that from, Jim and other
Mm-hmm.
guys in the room that came before me, and I really took that to heart because if people respect you in the run, most likely they're going to try to boot the other way because they actually know that
Yeah,
you won't fall for the play action. So I think those guys just got to stop thinking so much and just attack it, man. And so far, what we see is
good point.
even on the rundowns, those guys are they're trying to rush and they're getting mauled out to the sideline and opening up the holes and the gaps super
Giant
huge. So
gaps. Yeah, that's really
yeah,
true. And it helped to be like 275, 280 like you were too, instead of 250.
right,
There's a
right,
big difference there.
right. So and it's crazy because they actually got some stud linebackers.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
So, Vinny, Jim Schwartz is a guy you know very well, and he came in here and had to game plan a Cleveland defense, for the inefficiencies or deficiencies of Jalen Hurts. And one of those is kind of is attacking the middle of the field, within 15 yards or 20 yards of the line of scrimmage. Jalen is bottom in the NFL. He's only thrown to the middle of the field 8%. The next closest quarterback in the league is at 15%. So he is substantially lower than the rest of the quarterbacks in the NFL. If you're in the Giants, defensive line or just defensive room this week, how are you kind of strategizing to take advantage of that? What can you do to attack Jalen Hurts in this Eagles offense? That Jim Schwartz showed you on Sunday might have worked.
look, I know I'm not an offensive guru, but if I was a betting man, they better try to triple team Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's got
That dude,
9 sacks or 7
he's
sacks
had
already.
yeah. And let me tell you, the we actually was on. I actually was on a team where where I seen guys try to slide in the middle. I'm like, damn, they triple teaming you, which it was good for us because we start eating on the outside when they try to do that to Fletch when Fletch was going on a tear the way Dexter Lawrence is going on that tear. So I think that the Eagles offense and Coach Nick and those guys will have a great game plan and understands, what's going to be thrown at them this weekend, especially with, Jordan down. So they're really going to have to help, kind of maybe the tackle over there as well, and still had to put up with Dexter Lawrence. So.
Yeah, and to our diehards, we're going to continue on to everyone on Samsung and Roku. We thank you as we're nearing an end there. But Vinny, this Eagles offense, it just didn't feel right. And when you say Dexter Lawrence, I think of collapsed pockets and Jalen Hurts getting outside the pocket more. Fran, our co-host on Sundays, did a deep dive, and Jalen's numbers are actually down on the move a little bit this year from years past, and he's shown an ability to be really good at it at the pass. Do you think, you say some guys defensively may be thinking too much? Do you think there's an adjustment period here for Jalen Hurts in the tweaked new offense where maybe after 5 weeks you start to understand it, feel a little bit more comfortable, and stop thinking as much? Do you think that's one of the issues that's kind of been with them this year?
Absolutely. I think right now going in, especially like I said, you're coming off the bye week. You play Cleveland. Now we get into the divisional games. So now you have to understand that rush should be off. You should be getting into your comfort zone and getting ready to hit your stride of rhythm. So I'm expecting to see Jalen go crazy on Sunday, and I'm expecting, this my boy Saquon to, really help out. To really help out, and so to make his job easy, to take a load off. And I'm pretty sure that all the Eagle fans is waiting to, is standing on the back of Saquon, because we want this revenge game. We want him to dominate the Giants so bad.
So Vinny, Saquon said he doesn't think he's going to get booed on Sunday. What's the official
No,
Vinny
you
Curry
better
assessment? No?
It's not his fault. We all, everybody watch Hard Knocks. It's not his fault.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a good point. Yeah, but do
it's not his
fans
fault.
of teams actually process reality?
Yeah, man, that's not. Now, if he was a guy like, get me out of here, no,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if the roles was flipped, us Eagle fans, we're gonna boo him anyway. But it's not.
Yeah.
It's not his fault. It was a good thing for us, but I definitely think they would cheer for him.
Yeah, and last one for you, Vinny. Now that we moved past all the Sirianni nonsense from earlier in the week, I feel like it kind of clouded the play the Eagles are getting from their first 2-round draft picks this year, and Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. Can you talk a little bit about DeJean on Sunday, and just kind of how exciting these first 2 picks are, and how great they've kind of looked here through 5 weeks?
Bro, DeJean was all over the field, bro. It was crazy. To see the way he could blitz, the way he can cover. Like the kid definitely got juice, and yeah, man, we seen it. We talked about it in there. Like
Yeah.
he was so pissed about that pick he could have got. But you know what? It goes to show you that how bad, how passionate he is, and has the Eagles fan base. That's all we ask for. Play your guts out and just play with passion, and that's what you're seeing out of these 2 guys. These 2 guys was definitely by far great pickups.
Yeah, and Vinny, if you want a good laugh, the Eagles Twitter account released Brandon Graham mic'd up Sunday, smack talking the
Saw that.
Browns.
I told you he was gonna start talking like that. Hey, you my man. Yes, go blue, brother.
His laugh, man, just makes you instantly smile. He's the best. But Vinny,
Yes,
great
he is,
stuff, man.
2 legends.
Yeah, we'll see you on Sunday for Eagles Giants. It's going to be a big one. Did you hate the Giants or Cowboys more? I forget. We asked you, and I forget what you said.
Definitely hate the Giants, but maybe the Cowboys more.
Okay, so their collapse is music to your ears right now.
Yeah, man, this past weekend was a great weekend and a half.
All right, Vinny,
Good
good
to see
stuff.
you again, Vinny.
Yo, man, same here, man. You're looking good, man. You look like you found the fountain of youth, man. You want to share some of that water with me?
Well, I looked old a long time ago. That's my secret.
Awesome, Vinny. Looking forward to see you on Sunday, buddy.
All right, guys.
All right, see you. There he is, the great Vinny Curry, Super Bowl champ. Les, we're going to get out of here in 1 second, but I did have 2 other quick hitters on my sheet. I would love to know your reaction to Tom Brady becoming a 5% owner of the Las Vegas Raiders while in the booth.
Yeah.
And if you missed what he can and cannot do, I feel bad for
list.
I feel bad for Kevin Burkhardt here.
Yeah.
His partner in the booth. So if you missed
I don't understand why having a 5% interest in the Raiders is such a big deal to Brady. He basically has cut the knees off his broadcasting.
Yeah. And he got paid $550 million for that.
Yeah. I don't get 5%. I
mean, it'll turn into a lot of money, I'm sure, in 20 years.
I think he has some.
Yeah. But if you missed it, he is not permitted to be in another team's facility. He is not permitted to witness practice. He is not permitted to attend broadcast production meetings, either in person or virtually. He's prohibited, this one is wild, prohibited from publicly criticizing game officials and other clubs, subject to the NFL's gambling policy and subject to the NFL's anti-tampering policy. To say you can't criticize the officials in an NFL broadcasting booth,
yeah,
how can you do that job?
But you don't want an owner. You know, they wouldn't let. I mean,
Sure.
the Eagles have some minority owners. You never hear about them because they're not really public people. But if one of those guys, you know, said, those referees were really screwing us, they get fined really big by the league. And so, you know, if you're going to be one of those, if you're going to be part of the ownership, I just don't see how you can be a broadcaster and be part of the ownership.
I don't either. It's an extreme conflict
and
of
again,
interest.
I just don't get what he wanted out of this or what he thinks he's going to get out of it that's worth doing this to the broadcasting side of his life.
Yeah, I feel bad for his partner, Kevin Burkhardt. It's just, it makes it an awkward dynamic in the booth. And if I'm Greg Olson right now, I'm going, hey, what the hell? I'm pretty good at this job.
Yes, exactly.
And then the final one, Eagles-Bengals gets moved week 8 to 1 p.m. game for Commanders-Bears. Now, the question I have for you, is this more about capitalizing on Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, or more a testament to the Eagles maybe aren't as sexy as we once thought, and the Bengals, because there's some star power on both of these teams.
Yeah, I think it's about Jaden Daniels more than Caleb Williams, really. I think Daniels has become a huge, you haven't seen much like this in a long, long time. And I'm sure they didn't sign the Commanders up for very many national games.
So they just want to get them in. I think
it's all about that. I don't think – I mean, the Bengals aren't the worst team in the league. Joe Burrow is still Joe Burrow, and the Eagles are still a winning team. I really don't think they were dissing that so much.
Just trying to get Jaden in.
They would have been a tougher call if they were both undefeated or something.
Yeah.
I think it's about Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, you're probably right there. And Caleb Williams might have had his coming out party in London this past weekend. The Bears are good. I mean, their defense is stout, and they have some weapons on offense.
And the fact that they've never had a quarterback in the entire history of the franchise.
Which is crazy, isn't it?
It really is. They won a Super Bowl.
A storied
with
franchise.
McMahon, but with the greatest defense ever, It
really is weird. The NFL is weird. That's my takeaway from doing the show today. Les, it was a lot of fun hanging with you.
I enjoyed it, Jamie.
Yeah, thanks to Zach Berman for joining the show from the NovaCare. And, of course, Vinny Curry. We'll be back with Vinny on Sunday. We're going to be doing a pregame show out at State Street Pub in Media, Pennsylvania. Head to allphly.com, the events tab up top. It's $10, but that gets you a Miller Lite draft and an entry into our giveaway. And we are giving away club box tickets to the Commanders game to see Jaden Daniels the following game after the Giants. So hopefully we'll see some of you. Me, Rich Hoffman, and Roy Burton will be out there Sunday morning watching the first half, and then I'm sprinting back here to do the postgame with Fran, Bo, and Vinny. Bo and Fran will be doing halftime show. All four of us will be there with Zach Berman joining on the postgame show. So looking forward to that. It's a pleasure working with you, Les. Hopefully, brighter days are ahead here in Eagle Land because it just feels weird right now, and I don't like it.
It does feel. It's a sort of a you're in purgatory.
Yeah, it's like a weird state of flux where the excitement feels like the town wants to get behind it, but they're not really there because they don't really believe, and it's just kind of it's a icky feeling a little bit. So thank you to Julia, our producer, and to all of you sickos for hanging out with us in the chat. Zach and Bo will be back tomorrow at 2 o'clock with, I believe, Fran, and then Daynez, the professor, on Friday. So we got you covered every day here on the PHLY Eagles Podcast. Thanks, everyone. See you soon.
We all silly like the mayor.